Ground ball softened to second. Keith will charge, field and flip. Tigers win, they're moving on. They pour out of the dugout and mob each other behind the pitcher's mound. What a moment in Houston.
The Motown magic continues. The Tigers sweep the Astros 5-2, and they will move to the American League Division Series.
I want to vomit hearing Michael K's voice say that. I wanted to come into today's show pretending, wait, game 3, it's later this afternoon. Can't even do that. Michael K ruined it. We should have seen this coming. Clearly, I was very arrogant and cocky going into this series. But yesterday, Joe, we saw a lot of the same issues that have been plaguing the Astros all year. Bite them in the ass. Season's over.
It's sad. It's sad that this is such a quick run. I mean, it's one thing to lose if this was, in the ALCS like it was last year. But the fact that you don't even get to really compete in a real series because your offense is just totally and utterly incompetent, and the back end of your bullpen, which is supposed to be electric, is the opposite. It's just it's frustrating because we spent so much time. The minute Hader was signed, it was just get to the 6th inning. And really, Brian Abreu did his job. He's done his job all year long, where you don't even have to get to the 6th. He can come in like he did yesterday. He can get one out, and then he can come back out and be excellent in the next inning. It's the next two guys that Presley is awful at this point and unreliable, and Hader is unusable in a non-safe situation.
He wasn't worth what he was paid this year. What are we talking? 20 million, 19 million, 18 million. He wasn't worth it this year. I understand that he was good in the regular season, but you paid for this. He pitched yesterday. Walk, 4 pitches, first batter he faces. Then he allows that double, which I'm sure we'll hear at some point during the show. As you said, we saw this with Presley, who was called by many Ryan Stresley, multiple moments this season. And the offense, you scored runs on these 3 plays. 9th inning on a weak ground ball that barely got into right field. A fielder's choice where a ball could have been thrown to home plate for a force out. And on a sacrifice foul out that was basically right by first base. That is your offense for the playoffs of 2024.
It's just not good enough. And it's the same guys that are the same problem like it's been all year. And not just this year, in the postseason. We talked a lot about Kyle Tucker yesterday. Kyle Tucker in the playoffs is just it's an embarrassment. I mean, what the fact that he could have blown the game open and didn't get the ball to the infield?
Double play.
It's without Jeremy Pena's speed, like you don't even get the lead in yesterday's game. And then I don't quite understand why. Like that's what's so hard about what's the most frustrating about the Astros is that it just doesn't really make, I would say, like logical sense. You look at the lineup, you look at the top of 1 through 5, you say, okay, this should be a absolutely deadly lineup. And if you just get any contribution 6 through 9, you are going to roll over teams. And they've now lost 7 straight postseason home games.
That is staggering.
Yeah. I mean, it's just how this team has become so inept. And look, I think what part of it is, Paul, honestly, is that the offense has gotten a pass a little bit. If you look back to 2022, even though they won the World Series, there was a lot of times that year where the offense wasn't great. I mean, you have the most dominant bullpen in the history of the playoffs. And then the offense is not blowing people out of the water throughout the season. You saw the signs of struggles start to kind of be there in that year. And then last year, they gave us the batter's eye excuse, where it was, well, this is what's going on at home. This is why they're so bad at home versus so good on the road and all these things. And then this year, those problems just continued again. And it really is the fundamental issue with this baseball team going forward is that the guys who you need to rely on most are hitting a lot of singles or hitting nothing at all.
It's unfair to expect them to score 6 runs a game. But 3 runs in 2 games, Tarek Skubal only pitched 6 of the 18 innings against the that you played against the Tigers. So what's your excuse for the other 12? What's Kyle Tucker's excuse? And I understand that some would say, well, he might not be 100%. That was definitely not a bone bruise, but he wasn't good enough. None of this team was good enough. And ultimately, we all saw this coming. I know that we were cocky, and I know that I was playing into that bit of the cocky Astros fan, which some Astros fans take issue with to the point where they want to fight me in mutual combat. More on that later. But I just feel like they're going to be kicking themselves over this. This American League was wide open. There was not one dominant team. Orioles done yet again. So the Royals, Guardians, and Yankees, who you own, that's what's left. You blew this opportunity, and you did it by... I'm not a baseball guy. I'm not a baseball expert. Even I could tell their approach at the plate was crap. And this is what started to ruin baseball in the early 2000s. You had Red Sox-Yankees games that were lasting 4 hours. But you know why they were lasting so long? Because every single one of those batters on those two teams were working at bats. And I don't know why the Astros all of a sudden got to this point where we're going to swing at everything. We're not going to work counts. We're just going to swing, 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 swing. Well, you're swinging, and you're not even hitting well. So how are you giving yourself any opportunity to score here?
You're right. They've totally gone away from what worked so well for them from 2017 through 2021. And I know a lot of the faces are different. We saw Yiner this year make a lot of improvements from year 1 to year 2 in working counts. But and I get Altuve's approach. I get why he does it. But maybe it should change. It maybe something needs to change about the way that they were approaching honestly everything. Like that's one of the if you're going to try to look at this from a glass half full, is that the questions you have about this organization, about spending money, about getting free agents, about being more aggressive in the offseason. In my mind, if I was Jim Crane and I was having to sit there in my own stadium waiting for AJ Hinch to finish taking pictures so I could shake his hand and congratulate him, it would change my perspective about how I'm approaching this team. Now, look, they have one of the 6 highest payrolls in baseball. So it's not that they don't spend money.
I think it's top 4.
But to fix some of these problems, the only solution is going to be money. And if you want to just totally retool and totally just dive back in, pour a ton of money into it and try to fix it that way. Money can fix some of these problems. And some of these problems are going to be coaching problems. If your approach is this poor, and it has been, someone has to be held accountable. And if it can't be the players, then you should be looking at a guy like Alex Cintrone and say, this lineup, it totally got away from them, what their identity was. You didn't fix it. Whether they don't listen to you, whether you're a poor coach, whether they don't listen to Joe Espada. Their approach changed so much and got so much worse as the season went on. And even when they needed to change it the most, they didn't even waver of trying to take more pitches or trying to be more patient because it was just embroiled in their DNA at that point. Someone has to be held accountable for something like that. And then they had to figure out how to solve it and what those solutions are.
I don't know if this is going to change Crane's approach. They already spent all the money. I don't know how they're going to spend any more. I would be very surprised if they spend more. And you got a lot of questions this offseason about Alex Bregman first and foremost, but also Yusei Kikuchi, Justin Verlander, Ryan Presley. They're probably out the door, as is Jose Urquidy. At least you would think. But I don't know that this is something where Jim Crane can really change anything. I don't see how there's anything he can do here. I don't.
He'd have to be willing to do something he's never done before, which is, when he gives $32 million to Framber Valdez and Kyle Tucker in arbitration, that doesn't dissuade him from bringing back Alex Bregman. That he has to go out and replace someone, that makes maybe not $30 million a year to play first base, but someone, makes a good chunk of change.
Is Bregman coming back going to get them further than they were, or is it just going to get them back to where they got to?
That's a good question. It probably just gets them back to where they've gotten.
I think it just gets you back here. I think that there's a lot of things that you need to upgrade at. You need to upgrade at first base. They talked about it at today's press conference, but how are you going to do that without money, especially if you're giving some of this money to a couple of guys in arbitration? I mean, there's a lot of money on the books, and you hear all the things you want to hear from politician Dana Brown today at the press conference, talking about how they don't plan on standing pat. Cool. Great to hear that. I don't believe you. I don't think anyone should believe you. The payroll for this team is strikingly high. And I mean, look, you still have another year of a Jose Abreu and Rafael Montero counting towards the luxury tax. That's $30 million. Bye-bye. Yep. So I don't know what Jim Crane can do really here. And I do get the feeling that Bregman's gone. So there's a part of me which saw hints all along this year and had in the back of my mind, I could see how this thing ends, is now wondering whether or not this entire run's done.